Hello everyone. Welcome to today's daily drawing practice. And perhaps you've already been painting with Sabra, who just hosted a live stream and as in the live chat. Hello Sabra, Nana, Martina, Kiki, Maya. So nice to have you here. I'd love you to say hello if you're watching the live chat, and if you're watching the replay, say hello as well. Today we are going to be drawing from this reference image of Bayo Akomolafe, and I have had the delight of listening to a conversation this morning which was between, wait a minute, let me find it, I had just written somewhere. There's a podcast that I love. It's called The Sounds of Sand. Hello Ike. And I just listened this morning to the latest conversation, which is actually from 2022, but has been reshared between Bayo and Sophie Strand. It was very, very, very interesting. And the topic, what was it called? You just have to go check it out. It's so amazing. I'll talk about it a bit, see what I can bring up from my remembrance of what they were talking about. But there are certain things that Bayo has said. I've listened to two of his conversations now, which have just been super kind of exciting and inspiring. And we'll chat a bit about this now. So we're doing daily portrait practice. I'm working with wet media at the moment, so this will be watercolor. And I just want to show you something I've been working on because I was teaching a workshop today with a bunch of amazing kids, and we're doing a 19-meter long mural, and we got a lot done today, and I just wanted to share you because it's really cool. On Instagram I shared to my stories a video showing the kids working on it, and it's been so interesting working with them. And part of what is really interesting about what Bayo has had to say is something that I was experiencing a lot today, and it's this thing of welcoming mispronunciation, which I think is a very interesting idea. And I think there are maybe 10 kids in this workshop today, and I'm sure I've heard my name said at least 7 different ways. And this idea of welcoming mispronunciation is super interesting. Let me just shrink this down so I can show you what we're working on. It's been very interesting to be in this context of leading this group of kids, and they have a lot of demands and questions. And these 3 portraits here are from blind contour drawings we did of each other in a workshop. And then they got to choose and incorporate all these different things that they like. This is a choppy panorama shot, so there are details missing, like one of Deadpool's eyes. That's actually a heart between his hands. Part of Shrek's face is missing. Shrek with fairy wings in a like ballerina dress, which is nice. LeBron James and jellyfish. So this has been a really interesting challenge, bringing all of these elements together. This is at a basketball court, and it's been super fun working on this with the kids. And really, really interesting. And it's something I'll be able to get into a bit more as we're drawing. So let's start with this portrait. And I have been in touch with people from the science and non-duality community in the past, but I have not yet been in touch with Bayo Akomolafe. But you can check out at the Emergence Network, where there's a lot of interesting things. I feel like I have a lot to soak up and learn, a lot of very interesting ideas coming up in these conversations, and a very playful way at looking, perceiving, experiencing things differently, which is very important and I think good to do. So woohoo! Someone without a username made it. It's so good to have you here. Rev222 is here. Tommy is here. Rachel is also here. You're all here. Thank you for being here. Such good weather for being outside with the kids. It's been really good. It's been really, really cool. So feel free to say things, ask questions. I'm going to start painting. This reference image is beautiful. And I really appreciate working from black and white because I feel free and liberated in the choice of colors. And just to keep it, although you may notice, I don't know, maybe there are some recurring colors and things I like to go to, but I'm going to be working pretty wet is the idea. And we'll just see what happens in the next 20 minutes or so, shall we? What has everyone else been doing today? Where are my brushes? So this thing of welcoming mispronunciation is very interesting. Something that since school, so my name is Dylan Sara, and a lot of people call me Sara Dylan. And I have heard my name, the Dylan part, pronounced Dylan, and the spelling is also often different. Dylan, Dylan, Dulan, Dun, Dennis, Denin. There have been so many different ways I've heard my name said, and so often during the workshop, and it was very interesting because every time it's me, I am that person that is being addressed, and the name as a signifier of something, but that is not the thing. And it was a long kind of time ago, traveling a lot as well. I could just get used to people saying my name differently, and the idea of having the kind of the flexibility to have something be different than what it is and still be what it is a very interesting idea. There are so many interesting ideas in these conversations that I've been listening to, so it's been really exciting. Yeah, and the conversation was on new gods and the way that people have there was this thing, it was another conversation I listened to, I think Sounds of Sound as well, where they're talking about tardigrades as gods. And in this conversation today, there was this talk of some kind of worm, which is an asexual worm, which has been alive longer than anything. And apparently there's only, there are no males of this particular creature, and it just reproduces asexually by digesting. This is something that Sophie Strand was talking about, by basically eating shit and taking on the DNA of other creatures and developing itself through the digestion or indigestion of DNA and adapting and changing, and has found a very novel and special way to be able to live forever. And it was such an interesting idea. There are so many interesting things in the world, things that are beyond our kind of idea of what things are and how things should be. Another very interesting thing was actually something that Sophie said in the conversation, was that to be correct is to be isolated. So this idea of mispronunciation, of things being a bit different, of not having to be right, I felt like it's so fitting to the creative practice. And something which has been really cool with the kids in this workshop is that they're often like, oh no, it's not how it's supposed to be, it's not like that. And every time I'm just like, it's okay, you can do it like that, it looks good like that too, maybe it could be like this. And to have a framework from which we begin making our work, the piece that we're creating together, and then just to have this kind of interesting experiencing their kind of the process that they're going through, and to be able to be there and just be chilled most of the time and to be like, it's okay, we can do it this way. Let's roll with that. You can keep that like that, and let's do it a bit like this. And I've also had things that I've had to adapt to, where I think I have this plan of how it's going to be, and then some kids are like, I'm just going to do it like this. And it's like, oh, I made this plan, let's do it like this. It's like, oh, but I want to do it like this. I'm like, oh, okay. So having that flexibility to be able to be with different things as they arise, and not having to have it always be exactly the way it's supposed to be, is something in my drawing practice, but also in life that I find it's good to be flexible, and sometimes in certain situations it can be really challenging. But yeah, it's interesting, the idea of welcoming these deviations from what the perceived idea of how things exactly should be. It's so cool. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it was a really interesting conversation. I've put a link in the description, and you can all go listen to it. I think it's the most recent episode, although it's from a conversation in 2022. And yeah, it's the second time I have heard Bayo talking, and both times this idea of welcoming mispronunciation was addressed. And yeah, I'm really excited by it, because they have another amazing thing that was said was that in times of strife and struggle, where everything seems so turbulent and fast, that it's really important to just slow down. And it was like, what amazing advice. How amazing to be able to access that state, because often getting worked up doesn't always help. It can be important in some situations to get you out of a situation, perhaps, or for whatever it could be. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting idea. So what have other people been listening to podcast wise? I've listened to so many chats by The Sounds of Sand. Sand is science and non-duality, and I really appreciate the perspectives that are shared from very diverse people, from what they do and the perspectives that they bring to the conversation. It's all amazing, and I love listening to it. And yeah, and there's a thing like I have this mix, these different experiences when I open Instagram, and I use Instagram quite a lot, and there's a lot about it that I cherish, and sometimes I open it and I just scroll through things and it's like, whoa, and it can be so draining, but I feel like it's, in some way, it's important to know what's going on. There's so much terrible stuff going on, but there are other times where I'm just like, wow, there's so much uplifting, inspiring stuff happening at the same time, and to find the balance, or to be able to focus, invite some of the room for unconventional and uplifting interpretations of the way to how we can exist in the world is, I find, very valuable, just for me and how things are. So I'm super appreciative of being able to listen to these conversations. There have been so many amazing conversations had on that podcast. Is anyone here familiar with The Sounds of Sand? I know I've mentioned it a few times. I did the Where Olives Trees Weep live stream, where we did a lot of portraits from that film, and that was also something that was created by the founders of the Science and Non-Duality community, Mauricio and Zaya Benazzo. And there's just so often, I'll listen to these podcasts and I'll be like, wow, that's amazing what that person just said. And I often think it'd be cool to draw that person. Because every day I'm in this phase where I'm like, who are we going to draw today? Who are we going to draw today? And sometimes I kind of know in advance, but often it's very spontaneous. And I'm often not really very far ahead in my planning, other than knowing that I'm doing this every day. But sometimes from day to day, it's like, who are we going to draw today? Who are we going to paint today? What's up today? What is what is alive in me and the world today. And maybe sometimes it's some spontaneous thing where I'm like, oh yeah, that person said a really cool thing. That was interesting. Let's draw that person, or let's draw the person that they were talking about. And yeah, I think that's maybe it's a creaky chair. I was thinking today, because sometimes I've chosen the people to portray that I've been listening to. But often I listen to something like maybe that person. And I was wondering, it could be interesting just to bring to the portrait practice the topic of whatever it is that I've been listening to, because I feel like I listen to a lot of interesting stuff. Rev 222, you don't think you've heard of it before? Yeah, it's worth the hearing of. There's a lot of expansive concepts touched upon by the guests of science and non-duality, and I appreciate it very much. There is a lot of awareness of the polycrises faced by the world, and also a lot of joy and playfulness, and that is a welcome combination, I would say. That's how I feel. The mural project didn't get finished today. We were thinking maybe that was the official timeline, that we'd be finished today, and it's not finished. So now we'll see what happens, when and how, because tomorrow all the kids are gone and I've got some other plans. But it's all well in motion, and it's been really cool. I've really enjoyed the experience of working with these kids, and I think I've often been in this neighborhood. It's really interesting. It has an interesting history. I painted a mural there in 2020. Listening to a lot of stand-up whilst drawing lately. Do you have anyone you'd recommend? There are some very funny people around. So I like about this place where I've been working with these kids that there are a lot of people in this very small neighborhood that have very very different backgrounds, and the story of the place is quite interesting, so I will tell it to you, because I first had a job there, which was I wanted to paint on the wall of a house that was being demolished. I thought that would be a really cool thing to do. And then a wall was found in this neighborhood, and I was informed, hey Dylan, we've got a wall for you. You can come and paint here. And this house is being knocked down, and it's in a neighborhood where there were 8 apartment buildings, and each, over the course of 8 years maybe, each one of those apartment buildings is going to be demolished to build new apartment buildings, and the previous residents that were living in those buildings, they get a spot in the new buildings, so they're not losing their home, although some of the people I talked to said they would just rather have stayed there. But so the history of the place is, in the First World War, at the edge of the city of Göttingen, there was this neighborhood well, it wasn't even a neighborhood, it was barracks, and it became a neighborhood. And at the end of the First World War, a lot of German-speaking refugees from far and wide came to Germany because they, for whatever reason, they left from far through Eastern Europe and like all the way to Kazakhstan. There were German speakers who then, and maybe there were also other refugees that came to this place. And the barracks became the housing for this refugee community. And it was at the edge of town. It was kind of like improvised emergency housing, but it became its own distinct neighborhood. And it was very different, just like from the architecture, the layout of the place, the way the buildings were made. There were all these like one floor little huts, which had been to serve the living purpose of the soldiers prior. And then once that was done, it became houses for all these people. And so those huts were all demolished in the 60s, I think. So there were people living there, and the city kept expanding. So it used to be at like the edge of town, and then it was kind of swallowed by the neighborhoods around it as the city kept growing. And they decided they would demolish all of those barracks, huts, and build apartment buildings. And they did that. And so all the people that were living in these old barracks got moved into the apartment buildings. And then, now, so like 60 years later, they decided that there's been like a living space kind of challenge here. There's just not enough housing. And they're like, the space that those buildings are on, there are 8 apartment buildings. There could be 10 apartment buildings there. We could create a lot more living space. And the building material that was built in the 60s was not really fit to be renovated. So they decided it couldn't be renovated, asbestos, all sorts of stuff. So they're like, we're going to knock all those apartment buildings down. So this is 60 years later. They're knocking the buildings down and building new buildings. And as I went in there to work on this mural, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? I'd like to do portraits. And then I started meeting the people, hearing their stories. I was like, wow, I'd be on this building which is about to be destroyed. It would be so interesting to do portraits of people from the neighborhood, the people who have to move. And some of them, or one of them was like born in one of those, in the barracks back in the day. And it's the second time he's had to move, and he's always like lived in that neighborhood. And so there are a lot of really interesting stories, and the background of the people who they had to leave. They were uprooted from wherever it was that they were living, and they came to this place. And I've heard from other people, oh yeah, that neighborhood has always had like a bit of a reputation. It's like it's its own thing. A lot of people don't even know about it, who live in the city. They're like, what? Where is this? Never heard of this before. And it's not a big city, but it's really interesting. And now I know there are a lot of people who have come to Germany as refugees in more recent years have also like settled there. So it's like through unfortunate circumstances, it's kind of like the forced displacement that the world has come to this neighborhood, which is really enriching and kind of amazing. And that was something that came up in the conversation, that not that exactly, but they're talking about the ideas of introduced species in the natural world, and how they often are viewed as being not of this place, they don't belong here, they shouldn't be here. And we're talking about plants and animals in terms of introduced species, but you can kind of expand your own thinking to think whatever you want to think. There's certain kind of a way that these newly income things are kind of like seen as they don't belong here, they shouldn't be here, we should do all we can to kind of minimize their impact on the environment. And I've also often thought there's a lot to be said for that. And where I grew up in Australia, there are a lot of European plants that came, and there's been a kind of a move towards bringing back the native species which used to inhabit that place. And there's been a lot of beautiful stuff happen with that. But something interesting that came up in the conversation in this podcast was that sometimes the ability, like now with the changing climate, sometimes the ability of the introduced species to thrive, whereas the traditional animal and plant life kind of starts struggling with the change of the climate. It's like somehow those newly introduced, that diversity becomes a bridge to being able to kind of keep the ecosystem alive in some way, which was like really interesting to think about. And I find that this particular neighborhood is so interesting. The people there are wonderful, and I love that compared to the neighborhood where I live, the village where I live, which I don't know exactly. I just learned from one of the neighbors today that her family also, I think, in that like after the First World War, were also in that kind of refugee situation, coming from Poland to Germany. Yeah, but just this idea of the newness, the differentness, the things that we may not yet understand but can thrive and benefit from expanding our kind of expectation or thoughts of what a thing may be. And that idea of mispronunciation kind of comes back interwoven all through it, the welcoming the mispronunciation and the different awareness and different apprehension or conception of the different, just valuing these different ideas that can come into just a name being uttered differently, but still being the same thing. Hi, Sayan. This is all very wet. So I'm not quite sure what to do right now, because I kind of like where it is. It's interesting to be talking so much and just keep putting stuff on here and see what happens. How's everyone else doing? Where are you at? I wish I had water. I'm going to be doing a webinar on Saturday. Tomorrow, I hope to have time to get my head around it, present it in an understandable way. But let's say that the webinar will be at 8 p.m. German time. So that's 2 hours ago. And I would love you to join my mailing list. The link is in the description below this video and live stream, so that I can write to you how you can register for the webinar, and then you'll be able to join me and we'll be able to hang out and we'll be in Zoom together. So I will be sharing my process and my thoughts, and you'll be able to ask me things directly. And it's going to be about Ike is struggling. It's kind of going to be about struggling. I have this idea that in this phase of the year, everything is growing, there's abundance, there's so much happening. And there's also, it feels like for me, and I think for a lot of people, it feels like there's so much work to be done. There's so much to be done right now. And it's like how to keep moving. And sometimes it can be hard to see what needs to be done. And bringing it back to the process of making a portrait, or any image, that it's like when we get to the stage, we're putting in the work, but then it's like, how do we direct our energies? How do we bring it to the fulfillment of what it could be? That is the theme I want to work with in the webinar. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And I would love to have you there, because I feel like it's about portraiture, but it's applicable for life. So there will also be replay of the webinar available. Ike is struggling, can't get the smile on the face. Yeah, like a smile can be so elusive. Smiles can be hard. And Martina says, same, I drew a doppelganger. Round 2, yeah, start again. Why not start again? So sometimes you can sometimes the next step is to start again. Sometimes it can be to keep working at it, try and change things. Maybe it's just like reassessing the shapes. How is it that things are fitting together? And yeah, there are different things that we can kind of bring into our practice to find new direction. So it's going to be really cool. Join my mailing list and join me on Saturday. So yeah, the smile. So there is something. It's definitely I would say value relationships, shapes. Sometimes it can be tricky to be like, oh, am I actually there? There's super interesting stuff that happens in the muscles around the mouth and the eyes when you smile. Like the eyes are also communicating part of the smile. And capturing in our mark making, trying to capture the particular subtle shapes that make a smile really look like a smile. For some reason that can be pretty challenging, but it can also be very, very rewarding if something of a glimmer of the joy that someone's smile can actually bring, if that can, like, how incredible to be able to bring that into a portrait. So it can be super challenging, and sometimes, so an interesting conversation that I had recently in my mentorship. One of my mentorees, we were talking about there's often there's some elusive quality that sometimes is perceived in portraits, and be like, oh, like things that I've heard is like, how, without meeting this person, how have you been able to like capture them? There's something that there can be this emotional some kind of connection that you can have to an image which has been made, and it's like, how can something beyond, like, it feels like something beyond just the shapes and the marks that we're making is being communicated in the image. And it's particularly special when it's people who know the subject of the image, who are like, how can you make this paper look like this person? And yeah, there can be some kind of special quality which goes beyond just the mark making. But we were talking about it, and I feel like the practice of the mark making and of recognizing shapes and all of the kind of the technical aspects that go into being able to make an image, that it is that the familiarity and the practice, which sometimes that can be the foundation that extra quality may be resting upon. And it's through an observation and an awareness of form. And sometimes, yeah, when we notice like, wow, this looks off, this is not right, maybe that it can be a call to be like, what is it? Is there something I can change? Maybe there's a shape that I'm not seeing quite right. What is the relationship between this shadow and the highlight next to it? And it's interesting just how really being attentive to those different forms can help to see them. And then there may be something like, you may have also experienced, sometimes you will have images where it just feels like there's something special coming through in the drawing or the painting. And it may be a 30-second sketch, or you may have spent days working on it. But yeah, it's very interesting to notice. It's interesting to struggle, and it's also important to realize, have the experience that through the struggle that you can reach new insights, and that the struggle is not the end, that it is an integral part of the process and leads towards the who knows what. And to be open to that is that discovery. It can be discouraging, but it can also just be kind of, waving at you, inviting you to come and figure it out. Martina, you need to take my shadows and shapes class. Yes, my shadow shapes. We focused a lot on that last week. So not last month, rather. So there's a lot of replays of the live streams which are focused on shadow shapes, and the replay of the workshops is still available on my website at dylansara.com, because there was the shadow shapes workshop and the shapes in Procreate workshop. There's also a couple of shadow shapes tutorials in my Patreon if you want to check that out. Thank you to everyone who supports my work on Patreon. I love being able to do this with you, and a big part of what makes that possible is support on Patreon. So thank you so much. This brush. So yeah, the workshop, I'm trying to come up with a name. What do I call it? The last one was Leaning into Lightness, Playful Beginnings. And I'm wary. I don't want to call the next webinar Leaning into the Struggle, though that is partly what it's going to be about. But coming back to the podcast that I listened to today, they talked about the importance of playfulness in the face of sometimes seemingly overwhelming adversity, how joy and playfulness are important. So that is something I want to bring to what we're going to be sharing and doing on Saturday. The joy and the playfulness in the struggle. So who wants to join the webinar on Saturday? You can just say, I do, in the live chat or in the comments. But the best thing to do is going to be to join my mailing list, where I'll be able to send you the information to register for the webinar. And if maybe you've got something else on Saturday, there will be a replay will be available. And like last time, I'll make the replay available for like a week or something. This is it's a bit different than everything else. It's not a live stream. It's not a tutorial, which lives on indefinitely. So I really like people to be present, to be there for it, to really get into it. And it's free for everyone to attend. Oh, family plans. Yeah, I imagine. So some people celebrate Easter. And I will be Friday evening and Saturday. I will not be with my family. They're going to be at Kira's parents, and for certain reasons, there's not space for me in the car, and that's okay. That's totally fine. I'm able to entertain myself. So we're going to celebrate together on Sunday. The spring festivities. But then the first thought, whenever I have free time, I'm like, oh, I could do live streams. I could do something. So it's going to be a fun opportunity to hang out and do something together. So if you don't have family plans on Saturday or any other plans, make your plans with me. Nana, you do. Excellent. How's everyone doing with their portrait? I set no kind of time expectation on this one. Just going along. And I haven't used any pencil. Went straight to watercolor. So this is kind of exciting. Hello, Cookie Monster. Welcome. Martina, you do. The lady we drew on the 7th is still missing 1.5 eyes and her nose because it was wrong and you haven't managed to redo it yet. Who was that? Who was on the 7th? That's over a week ago. Can you tell me who? Was it Conchita? Hi, Wolverine. Was it this one? Thomas says you... Wait a minute. Oh, you think it was... Oh, Tommy, yeah. You think it was Franz von Stone, Wagonized, who said that there is nothing as beautiful as an unfinished piece. Yeah. Yes, I remember Franz saying that. It's so cool. At any moment, it can be finished. You just stop, and then it's done in its unfinishedness. It's wonderful. And she also has the opinion that if she's struggling too much with a piece, the advice is to just quit it, because it's so important to be happy about what you're putting so much time into. That's interesting. Cassidy said something really interesting yesterday in a Tuesday drawing session. She's a high school art teacher, and she said to the kids this thing that you can be happy with the process, or you can be happy with the outcome, but you don't have to be happy with both. And that was so amazing, because it's like the act of making something can be where the joy is, and then at the end of it, it can be like, it may not be that satisfying to look at, but somehow just the act of creation, that was where the magic was at. And sometimes at the end, you have a finished piece and you're like, wow, this is really good. And maybe there's joy in the end, but it's kind of painstaking to get there. So I think what Franz is saying is totally valid, like to retain the joy. But sometimes I know for myself of having the desire for this thing I'm working on, there's something I can't articulate which I want it to be or to have. And sometimes it can go through a phase of being really like dissatisfying and trying to figure out, how do I change it from me feeling unwell about what I'm doing to that's like signifying there's something that could be different. And if I can only figure out how to change that thing, then I may bring it to a place where I'm like, that's that's closer to this idea that I had. So that so if you can get through the struggle, and it may require leaving it and coming back to it, and so yeah, sometimes just having fresh eyes to perceive what it is that is evading you, or is yet to be seen by you. That yeah, sometimes just going away, coming back to it, that can really help. Because if you're able to get through the struggle, you get through that, and then you start to feel good about it again after going through that journey to get there, then it can be like, this was uncomfortable in the making, but I reached a place where now I feel like I have done something. Yeah. But definitely in the case of a brief sketch, whatever that may be, it's like if you just want to like dive into it and just start sketching something out, then just follow that intuition of like this is working for me, or this isn't. I'm going to start something else. Or yeah, I feel like there is value to both of those ways of being with the work. All right, I'm getting tired. This has been 3/4 of an hour, and I hope. Here we go. Wolverine doesn't agree with the quitting. I made the experience even something that doesn't start out nice can become tweaked to something nice. Yeah, not set in stone as long as you enjoy the process. Tommy says, as long as I get my dopamine kick. Yes. Amazing. Cookie Monster did around 200 portraits last year, both paint and charcoal. That's epic. Very cool. Is everyone already in the Discord server? And have you shared your social media on the Discord server so that we can like connect and check out each other's work there? I'll put the link in the live chat. Who are you? Cookie Monster and other places. That is something you could disclose on the Discord server. We're all friends there. Because I'd love to, if you've been sharing all of this epic amount of charcoal and paintings, I'd love to see it. Invite. Copy link. Oh, yes, true. Anafi. Right, yes. There's the Discord server. There's lots of parallel conversations going on there. You can get the reference there. Kiki's regretting color choice in the background. Kiki, you have been doing amazing stuff with these brief watercolor portraits. I just got to say, because I know it's something that we've talked about. Some of these, I don't know what time frame, if you're kind of, but I've noticed some of the ones that I've kept really brief. I've seen yours and I've been like, whoa, Kiki, that's cool. So that's really great to see. You're struggling with the color choice or regretting the color choice here. That's okay. Different color choice next time. Ooh, 40 of your pieces are in an exhibition, Cookie Monster. All right. Martina wants to know who E.T. is. Lewis. Oh, yes, cool. Full Circle Art Gallery. Great. I think I'm done. This is my piece today. Thank you so much, Bayo, Akomolafe, for all of the wonderful ideas and words. And I'm really looking forward to exploring more of these ideas. And so I've listened to a couple of conversations, but the Emergence Network I only just found today. So I'm really looking forward to learning more. And also, I want to go listen to Sophie Strand's book now. I think she has a couple of books. The conversation they had was in 2022, and it sounds like she was just about to release the book. Sounds incredible. So many really wonderful, inspiring, empowering ideas. So we need those. They're very good to have. So thank you, everyone, for being here. If you want to check out the podcast. I put the link in the description. And you can put your drawing hand emoji in the chat. That's right. Thank you to those of you who have already done it. There is a drawing hand emoji that you can put right there. And I see them starting to pop up, and the yellow love heart. Thank you so much, Maya, for the love heart. All right. You're welcome for the inspiration and the sharing of art. It's so good to create things together and to share these inspiring things. When I get inspired, I like to just share that. Gute Nacht. Schlaf schön. Sweet dreams. Rest well. And we'll be here again tomorrow. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Bye-bye.